Istanbul Urban Research, a report about the walk from 14th of November 2020, being recorded on 18th of November, so 4 days after the walk. Even though it would be the best, of course, to report immediately, but there were other situations, so I am reporting retrospectively. Looking currently at the photo documentation from the walk, so hopefully it will refresh my memory as well. What I can see immediately is the reminder from one of these first photographs that it was quite a rainy day, quite a windy day. It's autumn, so it makes sense. But even in autumn here in Istanbul, some days are much nicer than some other ones. This one wasn't the pretty day, it was more the gray and unpleasant ones, let's say, with the bad weather coming from the Black Sea, as people here say. So I started this situation maybe a little bit unprepared as well, because the day before I was rather tired. So when I set myself for the journey, I didn't really check the weather forecast. I didn't, for example, I didn't take the rain jacket or raincoat. So when it started pouring rain, I got totally soaking wet and I didn't have any protection. So, but I will get to this heavy rain situation a little bit later. So this exploration was about exploring the ferry routes, which is my new ongoing research in Istanbul, and this was the first research trip under the framework of this research. All my researches start at my base in Istanbul, which is in Kadıköy, a neighborhood in Rasim Pasha. So I think Kadıköy is the district and Rasim Pasha is the actual neighborhood or sub-district. My home, my room in a flat, in a co-shared living, is located nearby the harbor, Kadıköy harbor. So this is my starting point, or will be the starting point for all my ferry researches, most likely. This day, on 14th of November, I decided to explore the Haliç water strait in Istanbul, or so-called Golden Horn, which splits the center of the city on the European side in two halves, if I can say it this way, and which has a big historical significance, where I will not go now to these details, also because I don't know so exactly, so don't want to get lost in this historical matter. But from practical point of view, there is a really nice ferry line going inside of this Golden Horn. It is only one line with approximately 7 stops or so. And as far as I'm aware, you can only go with this one line, and it will stop in each one of the stations in the same order. So there is no fast line, no express, or there is no special boat which stops only on certain sections, certain stations, or one goes to the end, one goes to the middle only. So there is only one, and it has different starting points. For me, the most sense made to go from Kadıköy to the station, to the other station. Kadıköy is on Asian side, so I had to go to European side first, to Karaköy with a ferry, and then from Karakoy to catch another one that goes inside of this Halic Strait to towards the last station Eyüp, in the neighborhood of Eyüp or Eyüp Sultan. So I tried to stay outside on the boat despite the windy weather, because that's also one of my what is the right word? Well, let's say strategical point, that if possible I want to stay outside on the decks of the ships. Each ferry ship enables this, so that people can stay on at least one platform or on sides of the ship, sometimes even on several different open platforms, as well as there is always hidden like room or platform on the board of the ship, but so is the outside seating possible. And my reasoning for this is that this is a sort of prevention against the spread and contagion of COVID-19 disease. And my sort of alibi or argument, why do I utilize public transport unnecessarily during the time of the crisis? Well, even the question of is it unnecessary or not is questionable, maybe, because it is necessary for conducting of the research. Of course, the research could have different parameters, but if we give up on everything due to the fear and worry of the possibility of spreading the virus or catching the virus, I don't know, it is a dangerous trajectory, I think. So I decided to make a sort of compromise, that instead of using, let's say, overcrowded and sort of closed and claustrophobic metro trains or public buses, I'm using ferries which are more open, and I'm trying, when possible, to stay outside on those ferries, even though it's a hard task now in mid-November to be on the open ferry on the sea. I'm trying, but it might prove to be more and more difficult, just because of the harsh weather conditions, which are not so bad, but it's really quite uncomfortable after 10 minutes, let's say, to be facing this wind and water, possibly with rain. Well, anyway, this was more general thought. Coming back to this exploration of this particular line, well, now I can see that I did not make many pictures on the way, because I remember I was focusing on the making of videos. I'm not yet sure how useful these video recordings will be. I have some doubts because my camera is not so very good, and well, there is a lot of video of seaside and different buildings and so on, but I don't know, I guess it's better still to collect the material rather than not to do so. So also it is a point to which I could return maybe then in the future, just so it could be just a referential material for me, I guess. Speaking of which, I guess I can turn it on now again to refresh my memory a little bit. Yes, and I immediately can see that I'm passing in this video underneath a bridge. So maybe that's a good point, that there are several bridges one has to pass under when going on this Halic Strait. So the first one is the Galata Bridge, That's maybe the most famous one, I guess, because the most central and the first. Then there is one that, to my knowledge, is called Halic Metro Bridge, which is mostly a metro line plus pedestrian bridge on the sides. And it should not be confused with, I think, the fourth bridge, which is the big one, Ataturk. No, not Ataturk. Big Halic bridge. The third is Ataturk. The fourth is Halic. So the second is Halic Metro, and the fourth is Halic bridge. The most significant, again, I think, is Galata, which is for people to stroll on. There is a tramway going, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so the whole significance of bridges. This is interesting because in Bosporus, which is of course incomparably wider, but still there are only 3 massive gigantic bridges connecting Asia and Europe. The third one built only recently, last few years ago. But in Halic, which is much shorter, there are 4 bridges. So it somehow reveals the importance of bridges. I think if it would be possible to build more over Bosporus, or if it would be easy to build, also connect the infrastructure around and so on, there would be like much more than the 3 bridges. And well, okay, this is like free stream of thinking, so I'm getting carried away a little bit. But yes, I watched this documentary about the construction of this third bridge on Bosporus, and many people were against it. I don't go into the reasons why. It was like good reasoning, but it is natural that if the city is divided by the water body, this body has to be overarched somehow. There has to be a connection which is solid, I think, not just with the boats and so on, which are unreliable. If there is a storm, if all of the boats have technical issue, I mean, that's unlikely, but like something which is firm, where you will always know that yes, there is this bridge, every time I can pass it. So it's very important, I think. Even though these bridges on Bosporus, which is upsetting, none of them is pedestrian accessible, I think. Like I can confirm from the first bridge, which I visited personally, and unfortunately the other 2 I cannot say that I witnessed it on my own eyes, but at least the online maps says that this is not possible to walk on them, and I never saw a person on it either when seeing the bridges and looking at them from a distance. Okay, coming back to Halic. So the boat goes from one side to the other, again, because maybe sometimes it might have more sense to only go on the left side or only go on the right side, like what I have experienced in Bosporus a few days later when I went up north, inside the Bosporus, and the boat, to my surprise, was not going at all to the Asian side, but was only stopping on the European stations. So this is different in Halic, that it goes from left to right, right to left, left to right, making the tour, slowing it a little bit, let's say, if you want to go to this particular place, and then you have to hop from there to there to there. But all in all, I think it's rather quick, rather fast still, the whole thing from the center, from the beginning of Halic. So let's say from Karakoy, maybe there is another stop in Eminonu, I assume. Don't recall exactly, but I would guess. So then it takes maybe 30 minutes or so to get to the very end, which is Eyüp station. So it's not such a big deal, and the boats go every hour or so. So the accessibility, at least from the European side center, is rather good, although it has its limitations, because every hour is okay, but it's not such a great coverage. And then if I would like to come from, let's say, my neighborhood, which is also central, But on the Asian side, then I have already a bit of a problem, because I have to switch the ferry, I have to wait for the other one. So for me it took much more than half an hour, maybe hour or hour and a half, to go from Kadıköy to the end station of Eyüp in Haliç. And I'm also saying this because I was considering living in somewhere in the middle of Haliç, in Fener station, or more towards the beginning, but yeah, and then I was thinking that maybe the accessibility is not so great. But I think it is still great that you can go on the boat inside of this otherwise like really densely built city environment. So yes, this is really, we're in the middle of this European side dense urban fabric, and the water is here really refreshing and relieving, and the ferry can get you quite smoothly inside of this urban territory. And then apparently they are trying to build metro line, or they are building a metro line on the left side, again, which should go somewhere from the center, Eminönü, also to Ali Beykoy neighborhood. But sadly, for this they are blocking the access to the shore, to the seaside of this left side of Haliç. And even when the metro will be finished, so it will basically destroy this left side accessibility, it seems, because the rails are going so close to the shore. So one can expect that this will be for the train, for the metro, not for the people, not for the beaches, unless there is maybe some small piece of park or something that can be somehow accessed. I don't know how. But what still on the online map you can see that, well, there is a greenery, there is a beach or something. So now there is a construction site, and after the construction site there will be a railway. So I'm even a little bit unsure like what is my stand on it, because I think it will give people a great ride on the train, but maybe the price is really way too high, or maybe there could be some other solutions implemented how to have both, with the train maybe a little bit more further and higher, so it would be elevated, and the riders, excuse me, the people riding the train would still have the view and the spectacular central city water experience from the metro, like people who are riding the metro over the Haliç metro bridge, and the people could still access the greenery. I mean, I cannot like fully imagine it, but let's say this way. Or the metro could just disappear, like totally go just under the ground. Maybe it's then more expensive, I don't know. But this solution, it definitely prioritizes the metro, and I am in big doubts if this is the healthy solution for the people, because it's really precious, I think, what they have here in this Haliç part, again because of all this densely built environment around. So yeah, now more and more I think that this is real nonsense to sacrifice this this shore. Well, now I'm thinking this is a really good, I'm not even sure if I want to publish this later. I'm half decided that yes, half no, because before I was using it publicly, these audio recordings. Now I'm just very happy that I have it as a working material for me. And also I realize how very useful it is to actually make this video documentation, again, if for nobody else, then for me at least, to really have a reminder of what the atmosphere of that day was, what is the atmosphere of that place, and that the photography will never replace video documentation, I think. Because now I can comment on it and I can at the same time watch the video and be immersed in this whole situation and think about this whole environment and my thoughts about it. I think I will take a break before talking more about the second part of this exploration. I said in the beginning walk, but actually ride is better expression because this is the main part, the ride. But okay, then after the first part, then also came the actual walk. So I think it's very good to read this exploration of this day in two parts. And maybe some last small notes, quick notes about this ride. So not the walk yet, but the ride itself. That there is more construction going on. I could see also some big construction happening on the other side from Fener. Maybe that's something I should still check on. Then I have here a note about the flags in the city and their omnipresence. So yeah, I think that we were joking with a friend that Istanbul, it's like what is significant for the city is that there is a mosque everywhere, or the flag, mosque and flag, mosque and flag. So that's even not a joke, that's just how it is. That's what you see all the time in the cityscape. And also the flags are indicators of wind direction, because there is so many flags, and when the wind is strong, so you can see clearly that this is where the wind is coming, so where the Turkey is going. Like you can read it also symbolically. I like this idea about reading symbolically the flags. For example, when I was going on this particular ship, so there was the Turkish flag on the back. On the mast was sort of entangled or twisted, so it wasn't straight. And you can read it like, oh well, so what does it mean for Turkey? Is it like in some difficult entangled times or confusing times because the flag is not straight and so on? But that's just like some associations. And then I have here another note. I'm looking at my notes. Sea police, question marks. Yeah, so is there any sea police in Istanbul? I would guess that for sure, but I don't think I have seen any so far. Or maybe I did, but I'm not positive. I cannot confirm. So that's another note, maybe not so much related to this particular ride, but just thinking out loud. And I think now I need a break, and then let's take a look on what's beyond the last station of this line. Istanbul Urban Research report from the ride and walk on 14th of November 2020 to Eyüp, recording on 18th of November, so 4 days later, part 2. Here I would like to continue the report about the ferry ride from Kadıköy to Haliç, end station of the ferry line, going to the station Eyüp, to the neighborhood of Eyüp or Eyüp Sultan. First part was maybe the more important when I took the ferry ride, and in the second part I continued by walking, following the water stream of Haliç, where there is no more ferry line going. Maybe it could still go for a little bit further, or maybe, for sure, there. Okay, I don't know for sure, maybe the waters are not deep enough, but I would assume it could still continue for, let's say, a couple of 100 meters at least. But from some point on, it certainly is not possible to continue with the ferry because the stream gets much smaller. We cannot speak about any bay anymore. It is more like a smaller river, or not even. It is really like just a small stream with almost no water at all at some places. So, and there are two branches. So I decided to follow the one on my left side, or on the left side of Halic, which is actually where I got off as well, which is where the end station of Eyüp Sultan is. First of all, I saw very interesting modern mosque on the other side though, so I'm still very curious what this is. Looks quite nice, not too big, not too impressive, but quite interesting architecture. Also there is the central building plus surrounding buildings, so I wonder what these are. And apparently it was not built such a long time ago. This information I'm retrieving from the photography, so again I'm very happy that I have this proof, or how to say, this reminder. So I think it is really important to make this documentation, if for nothing else then just for my own working purposes. I'm just like reminding myself now. So also now I can reconstruct the narrative of the work, not just based on my memory, but it can be more factographical almost. But of course the question is if this should be the aim, because then maybe if to construct the narrative from the memories only, it is more even important. I mean, this is what really stays, because now when you put something in the photos, so then you limit the walk into these particular photos, and then what is not captured is fading away, whilst if there is nothing captured, it also fades away. But well, maybe then what is more important for you as an actual walker remains. I think could be both. So, but now I'm maybe more on a path again of multiplicity of documentation material. Now I'm looking at the metro line because I made a picture of what they intend to construct around this Halic shore, as I was mentioning previously. And apparently it should start in Eminonu station, and then the next one is Küçük Pazar and Cibali. I don't know these two, but I know the next ones: Fener, Balat, Ayvansaray, Eyüp Sultan. So these are the stations alongside Halic. And then the metro should continue to several Ali Beykoy stations in Ali Beykoy neighborhood, Ali Beykoy Merkez Metro and Otogari. So this is also where then later on I intuitively continued, because you're intuitively, or rather I was following the stream, and apparently the metro line is also to a certain extent following the stream as well. Also, I've discovered the gondola, the flying cable car public transportation in Eyüp, which is one of the two, I think, that are in Istanbul. So I got, of course, very interested and took the ride on this surprising line. It goes from the water level in Eyüp to Pierlotti Hill, which is surrounded by the graveyard, and it's very short ride, maybe 3 minutes. I have a nice video from it with two Muslim conservative women, all in this hijab clothing, who were making selfies on the inside of the gondola. So this is also quite funny for me, or interesting reminder how the digital culture, globalized culture mixes with the conservative traditional ways of living. For me, maybe this was surprising, for them very normal, that whilst something is not allowed, something else surprisingly is, maybe taking pictures of oneself and posting it on the online media platforms. Maybe, well, I don't know, maybe then they were not so conservative after all, or not so orthodox. I don't yet have enough knowledge about the levels of well, religious devotion in Islam. All right, so then I went up to this Pierlotti hill, and most interesting for me were two abandoned islands, small islands in Halic. There is nothing on them, just a very few trees, little bit of grass, that's really all. They're really rather small, not like super small, but more or less it's just a piece of rock with a little bit of greenery on them. And it's really beautiful unused space in almost the center of the city, easily accessible by this ferry. So this is just a side note that it's really exceptional space, I think, in this area, and that I would definitely like to come back to it and maybe somehow visit it on the boat, or bring audience there on the boat, make small events there. Let's see. Well, these are the islands and the gondola. After that, actually, I should come back down again, because well, the river or the stream of water from Halic obviously was down, not up. So I went up by the gondola and then walking down again, finding the stream and continuing. Yes, I remember trying to walk around this water body, but as mentioned before, there is the metro construction going on, so actually I could see the water only every now and then, which I tried to capture in the videos, where I was making several shots of the fence, which is blocking the view, and when every now and then there was open access to the construction site, or to what has been left from the park near the water, there would be a guard always. So either it was a fence, or there was open area, but it was not for common people, but for the workers, with a guardian controlling who is accessing the water. So really quite annoying. Yeah. And then next to the fence, of course, what you would find was not any like pleasant stroll situation, but car, not a highway, but road for cars, quite busy. And basically it was the opposite of some peaceful trail for walkers alongside the river. But now you have to, if you are just walking up the stream, so you're walking on the left hand side, you have the car road, on the right hand side you have the fence. There is just a small path, and this was happening for, I don't know, like a couple of 100 meters for sure, maybe even a couple of kilometers or so. Yeah, so of course not like hardcore or like impossible to walk on, but certainly not pleasant, or I would not see any need to repeat this. Okay, and then other like funny mention that I have encountered is Dolphinarium, which is a bizarre institution on its own. I didn't even know that like thing like this exists, or maybe I had some knowledge, but for sure I never saw any show in real life with dolphins, I think. or certainly no, I think I did not, and certainly I did not see it in a place which would be especially dedicated to dolphins only. So it's a dolphinarium, and not enough that this is such an absurd thing, but it looked like really shady, really not in a good condition, like dirty, abandoned next to this fence, also to the construction site. It looked, yeah, almost abandoned. I was almost sure that there is like nothing going on. And then I entered, there was a coffee, there was a dolphin show just about to start for some like 200 lira basic price or beginning price or so, which I mean, I guess if we're in some other country, more developed country, it's not like such a huge amount, but it would be still quite a lot. In Turkey, like I cannot really imagine who is going there. And then this is the basic price, but then you can go up to 800 or 900 lira for things like swimming with dolphins 20 minutes, or what was it, interacting with dolphins, I think. Yeah, there is something, it was translated to English, so I understand that, yeah, that there is 20 minutes of interaction with dolphins for another 800, so like, well, 80 euro, 90 euro in a country where people, I don't know, can earn maybe 1 euro per day, or I don't know if I'm not like overreacting now, but I heard in this one documentary 10 years old that they were making 20 lira, 2 euro per day 10 years ago. Well, but more about the dolphinarium. Here I'm on a how you say, fragile ice, or I don't have enough information about the salaries. So yes, I'm still now looking at the pictures. Looks really suspicious and funny, but between the construction site and the road outside, Turkish autumn, rain, and people coming to the show, nevertheless, very, very surprisingly. And the show being, well, happening in the first place, like, well, so I went there at first to a bathroom. There was quite pleasant with all the cold outside and feeling the urge for quite a while already. So I got some warm, and I could use the toilet. Nobody asking me anything when I entered, so I was just strolling inside of this whole weird hallway. And then thinking that, well, okay, since I'm already in Dolphinarium and I would like to see the show, but I actually don't want to spend my money on, on nothing, on seeing animals suffering. So maybe I better just grab a coffee and go. So I took the coffee, watched some sort of like National Geographic documentary, not really National Geographic, but of a sort, about, I don't know, like some people in Central Asia or so living in a yurt in Turkish language. So like watching this in a dolphinarium, another level of strangeness, and I went on. So then another notable mentions I could see, again, the I guess the typical topic of Istanbul emerging alongside this, I think it was called Atatürk Caddesi. So the street, Atatürk Caddesi, or some other one. Maybe that's not the point, but well, basically following the stream, I could see that there were blockhouse buildings being built on a hill, like small hill, and then just down on the hill, the older one floor tall settlements, again in a big contrast with I don't know, like trees growing on the hill, and between the trees there are small houses, and behind them there are, well, not skyscrapers, but, well, block houses. And then I continued, the stream got like muddy, and yeah, it reminded me sort of Ulaanbaatar, where there is some kind of similar disgusting wannabe river flowing in the city. I'm sorry, Ulaanbaatar, but yeah, unfortunately the water is in crisis, not just in Istanbul, but in Mongolian capital as well. And this drying out stream led me to something which is called Fifth Levant. So it's like Fourth Levant, which is, to my understanding, a neighborhood or some living unit, or not unit, but like a project. I think in northwest Istanbul. I haven't been to Levant or Fourth Levant yet. My understanding is it's two different situations close to each other. But this Fifth Levant, I don't know, I think it was just abusing in a way the name, like saying that yes, we are as successful as the Fourth Levant. I don't know, maybe I should take a closer look on this whole Levant thing. And then the Fourth Levant is in like quite a different place. It's still in European side, it's on the north, so this both matches, but there will be a distance, I don't know, 10 kilometers between them at least, so they are definitely not like close to each other. And then looking at the pictures again, I see like more all small houses, like half houses, half shacks or tents. Not tents yet, but and then the new construction behind them. Yeah, then I remember that I take a short break and I continue. Then I remember I was walking on this road, and I could feel clearly that I am entering more a suburban situation. Whilst in Eyüp it was still more historical, kind of nice, traditional, I would say, neighborhood. What I was coming into now, it was more confusing, unstructured environment somehow, and under the construction as well. Not just the metro thing, but then I was walking on the road, which usually would be 4 lanes. I mean 2 and 2 lanes for car in both directions, but only one side of the road was operational and the other side was under the construction, meaning that, well, it didn't seem that there is going on that much, but it just was not accessible to go there with with a car. So the pedestrian could walk on this route for cars, which was partially covered with like construction material or garbage, and it had a very strange atmosphere, I would say. Also because I could feel that I'm entering this more peripheral situation with worse public transport accessibility, and then the heavy rain started. So the whole trip started to be a little bit grim, let's say. Yes, then I remember walking just on rocks and mud because I could either walk nowhere. Either I walk with the cars or I walk through this mud in the heavy rain, of course. So, well, then, yeah, I walk through the mud and stones. It wasn't a long section, but yes, then it started to be a little bit frustrating. But I had a goal I wanted to achieve, and that was to follow the stream until the point where it is not stream anymore, but it changes into a lake. I think I could call it a lake. So now when I return back to the map, I can see it's called Ali Bey Barrage, what I wanted to reach. Relatively big lake, and from there, this is still not the end of the water stream, but after the end of the lake, I can see that the small stream or small river continues for still quite a while until some other settlement, after going through or next to a big forest or big piece of greenery. So basically, this is where like one mass of urban construction is slowly fading away, and natural unconstructed section of the city starts, at least for a while, before there are other places and other settlements, because it cannot be said that at one point the city ends, because it has these gaps, but then again it has some continuations. But for me, I sort of reached some kind of periphery in Istanbul, that's for sure. Yes, but actually I could not reach the lake. I did not manage to reach the lake because now I see how I could go somehow around, but the situation, well, maybe not even. I would have to go really a long detour, or the thing is, it started to be much more for cars than for pedestrians, so there was more or less nobody, just someone lost couple and me walking on this path next to the road. And I could see that the path, which was on the online map marked as accessible for pedestrians, that I don't know, it might have been accessible, but only very hardly, or maybe not at all, because it really started to seem like a car road, or it seemed like a car road. So then at that point, late in the afternoon, soaked wet, and according to map, 20 minutes from my final destination, from this Ali Beykoi lake, I decided to give up. I decided I had enough of adventure and fun with this water and mud and everything, but that maybe that's not the point, that my art will not become better, or that I do not necessarily need to force myself into suffering just so to achieve some goal which maybe does not even make sense. Yeah, I think this was important moment or realization for myself. What am I doing, for whom, and if I really need to do it? So if I think about it as about a sort of long durational performance work, then often there is this idea that there is a task and this task has to be fulfilled. Fair enough, but maybe we should overcome this, which is a really beautiful new idea I've encountered a couple of times, that there might be something unhealthy or problematic about this task-oriented long-durational performances, because people are really exposing themselves to suffering voluntarily, and the question is, do we need this suffering? Is it helpful? For whom? And isn't it better just to accept the sort of failure? Like, this could be called a failure, even though, well, the main point was to ride a ferry, and then I was walking for a couple of hours more, so it was almost like a bonus. So what's the point of this bonus, like going really turning into some sort of suffering. Yeah. Well, so basically, I wanted to I wanted just to finish this situation, and I was wondering how. And long story short, I managed somehow. I catch the bus really quite quickly in 5 minutes. That was like magic. The bus took me from basically the place where I was. I just had to cross the street. In 5 minutes, there was a bus. It took me to the metro station. I went with one metro line to its end station, to Mecidiyeköy. Then I switched to another line. I went to the Haliç metro station, and then I walked to the pier to catch a ferry to Kadıköy. So you can see that already I went by bus and metro. And at that point I started to be really tired and hungry and like shaking, kind of like wet. It was a long day. So then there was some confusion about the lines, the ferry lines. I knew that there are two lines going, one to Kadıköy, one to Üsküdar. I just very closely missed the one to Kadıköy. So then there was another line, and I wasn't sure, is this one going to Üsküdar or Kadıköy? And somehow I was thinking, okay, this one is to Üsküdar. But no, that was for Kadıköy. So first I missed because I came 1 minute late. The second one I missed, it was just in front of me, but I didn't enter. And then the next one which came was to Üsküdar. But I got on to it because I knew it will be warm there and there will be some small snacks and drinks on the boat, and that I will just that I will take the detour basically better than just to continue standing inside of this small waiting ferry station in Karaköy. So after bus, metro and some walking, I took the wrong ferry consciously to Üsküdar, and from Üsküdar I took Marmaray, and then I walked from Marmaray to my home in Kadıköy. So in the end, this whole trip was certainly interesting, bring different knowledge and so on. But it was also there a bit of suffering involved, for better or worse. And the route back home was not even that difficult in terms of like understanding where should I do, where should I go, what should I do from these like sort of suburbs. That was the easiest actually to get out of this middle of nowhere lake and road. But then to get out of the center back to my place, for that I was maybe a bit too exhausted. So but maybe coming back again also to the question of, so what is the point of this exhausting oneself? But I think that's okay. It is not a problem if you if you walk on the track and you walk 20 kilometers, in the end you are also tired, or maybe you're very tired, and all you want is just to go sleep and get a warm shower and so on. But you get also some sort of reward from your walk. So this is the same thing. This is not just suffering, or maybe there is just a bit of suffering, but there is also a lot of pleasure behind. But just I think that we should always, as performance artists or walking land artists or whatever, we should always keep in mind, why do we do what we do, and do we need to suffer? If yes, how much? Or do we enjoy this masochism? If yes, how much? So that's maybe another thing which again came to my mind, and which I will be coming back to again, I think. Well, so much about this particular ferry and walking experience to Eyüp Sultan from Kadıköy.